Mohammed bin Sulayem. No, not the Saudi Arabia one. That's someone else, despite the names being extremely similar. Although to be fair, both are starting to kind of act like dictators now. In today's video, we're going to talk about how the FIA chief isn't the most popular right now, and why drivers are united against him. So make sure to stay until the end of the video to learn all about it. First up, George Russell and Valtteri Bottas are united against FIA chief. Mohammed bin Sulayem has doubled down on this one particular part of the sport, which folks are not liking, especially the Mercedes' younger Russell and the Alfa Romeo veteran, Bottas. The pair of drivers have spoken about this issue quite a lot and have clearly shown their disdain for it. This is exactly why Sulayem angered them both when he announced that the system of alternating race directors will continue. In the 2022 season, it was Eduardo Freitas and Niels Wittich that shared the role. This was their first year on the job after the hugely controversial Michael Masi was sacked. Why was he sacked? Oh, come on, y'all already know how everything went down. There's no way y'all don't know. He completely botched the 2021 Abu Dhabi Grand Prix, thus ruining the title race. Investigations later on showed that it was basically a human error that led to all of this happening. So now what does the FIA want? Well, they hope that by having two folks sharing this demanding high-pressure role, problems like this will go away. But because of the constant rotation of the directors, there was a complete lack of consistency last season. A lot of calls were made that weren't meant to be made, and it was all in all an extremely confusing experience. Now, this is a job that isn't easy to do. Hence, it's also hard to look for people to do it. The race director needs to have considerable experience, but not many of them end up having it. The two blokes that we have aren't really inexperienced, so that doesn't seem to be the problem. Next up, the race directors. Directing races isn't new for Wittich. He's been a race director in the German DTM series. Freitas isn't that inexperienced either. He split his time between F1 and the World Endurance Championship, both of which are extremely difficult and sophisticated sports. They require a level of professionalism that we might not see in other areas of motorsport. Hence, he's good to go as well. For now, we're not really sure if we're going to end up getting both of those people, to be honest. But here's what we do know. The president of the FIA has claimed that no matter what, this is a role in which two folks are needed. He's completely adamant about this. Think back to the late Charlie Whiting. He did this job all on his own for so many years. No teammates, no partner, nothing. It was just him and his skills. However, the FIA chief has stated that there's a new process now, and the FIA is going through training for stewarding and for race directors, so there shouldn't be too many problems from now on. Here's what he said: "You cannot just have one race director and rely on them. I see that we should prepare for the second role. We cannot rely upon the biggest discipline that we have or any other discipline. What if something happened? If we are going to sustain motorsport, we have to be ready with training." This statement is something that's not really being taken well by George Russell, and of course it wouldn't be. Having two directors can get messy at times, and it can get inconsistent. Up next, what do the drivers say? So here's why this is so important, folks. George Russell, of all people, is being talked about a lot, isn't he? That's because he's the director of the Grand Prix Drivers Association, also known as the GPDA, and he made it completely clear that he's not in support of this role being split, and he feels that it would just make a lot more sense if this thing was in one person's control. George said that the entire association feels that having rotation isn't really the best thing for the sport. He stated that they've never had a steward from a previous event at the next race to talk about certain decisions. At the same time, Bottas agreed with him. Giving his own opinion on the matter, he stated that having just one director is much better than having two or even three directors. He feels that having the same person in each race is just more convenient, and you know which person to discuss all the issues with. He also stated that having the same person means that the director knows about the driver's feelings on certain decisions as well. It's more about that relationship and knowledge, we guess, because it really does make sense. Having two directors would be kind of a menace, to be honest. Because, for example, with Masi, you could go back and forth several times, and he knew exactly how the teams felt about certain things. That's just the sort of working relationship that's missing when you have two or even more directors. Now this makes bin Sulayem a lot more unpopular. Not that he was extremely popular to begin with. We mean, it's under his era that the whole free speech thing in F1 is also under attack. He also made fun of Vettel racing with that rainbow helmet now, didn't he? And because of things like this, the president has been facing plenty of resistance from Formula 1. He's been here for just over a year, but many in the sport would prefer if he was less hands-on and didn't interfere with the day-to-day of the sport. And this isn't just it. At the moment, one of the most polarizing issues is whether or not a new team needs to be added to the grid. The FIA itself is extremely open to the idea. They even have opened up this thing called expressions of interest, which is a process process by which teams can show they're interested in the whole thing. But most teams are saying they need more money before they even start to entertain the idea of another team. Michael Andretti, who's partnered up with Cadillac, is trying to enter the sport as well, but the teams are constantly getting in the way. And while we too think the addition of Andretti Global would be extremely beneficial, we will finally have a proper F1 team from America. This same position is taken by the FIA president. This fact is kind of something that's making him unpopular amongst the team bosses as of right now. What's more, F1 will never go back to having just one race director. Yup, amongst all this controversy, Ben Sulayem has doubled down on this stance, and despite so much resistance from everywhere, he feels that having 2 or more people involved is something that'll ensure a smooth transition, and it's something that'll help reduce problems. He also reiterated his stance, stating that many talented officials are operating at the grassroots level, so talent acquisition for this gig is not something that concerns him all that much. So from where we're standing, it seems as if the days of having just one director are long gone. And no matter how much the GPDA argues on this, we don't think that the FIA president will ever change his stance on the whole thing. Moving on, Lewis Hamilton and George Russell's complaints forced Mercedes to make changes at the factory. Andrew Chauvelin, an engineer at Mercedes, has opened up on the changes that the team made at their factory to solve porpoising issues after their drivers complained about them. And of course, this makes sense, doesn't it? Because this issue really made everything extremely difficult last season, and it led to a lot of problems. The biggest change came to the team's CFD systems, so they could be better at identifying problems and fixing them. Because here's the thing, the team needed to crack the code of what was happening with the cars that led to his problem. Until and unless that was figured out, there was no fixing anything. But eventually, the team was able to fix the issue after a while, and they really did end up making massive improvements to the car. While talking to motorsport.com, he stated that the issue wasn't really the wind tunnel itself, but it was a mechanism that they hadn't captured in any of their modeling. In the most simple words possible, they literally had to engineer this porpoising issue out of the car. He also mentioned how difficult it was to do all of this, with the cost cap and all. Well, it turned out that the cost cap didn't really matter now, did it? Because Red Bull broke it, and they ended up getting just a minor slap on the wrist. At the same time, they needed to figure out how to develop the tools that were needed to get back to where the team was in previous years. Finishing up, this hurt Hamilton the most. No, not in the sense of a lost championship and all that, but in the sense that he literally had massive back pain because of these issues. At one of the events, he struggled to even get out of his car. Later on, he even said that he was biting down on his teeth in pain when he was going through it. He stated that the pain on the straights got so bad that he was just praying for it to end. Russell wasn't okay with any of it either. He stated that this bouncing was the most extreme thing he's felt in forever. Eventually, after this constant criticism from both teammates, Mercedes closed the gap. The drivers started fighting out in the front all over again. If it wasn't for the drivers constantly complaining, this may have never happened. Not that they were nagging or anything. With the way things were, the W13 had become undrivable quite literally. All eyes are on the W14 now. Let's see what Mercedes ends up doing. That's a wrap for this video. What do you guys think though? Do you guys think that Mercedes will make a competitive car this time around? Let us know in the comments below. Make sure to give this video a thumbs up and subscribe to our channel for more videos like this. See you at the next one.